Today we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin, Solana, and Shiba Inu. My ladies and gentlemen, is another crypto market correction awaiting us in the coming days? Will Bitcoin's price drop towards $45,000? Or will the growth continue, which began yesterday after Nvidia's quarterly earnings? Let's begin by looking at the Bitcoin price. After that, we'll discuss a significant economic event that could very strongly impact the entire crypto market in the upcoming days. But we'll delve into that a little later. And then we'll move on to talk about altcoins. Let's look at the situation we have with the Bitcoin price. The price of Bitcoin went up yesterday. Why did it go up? That's because Nvidia's quarterly earnings came out. Surf Unidos merkit this growth shares is linked solely to these quarterly numbers because typically markets were also growing. Look where it stopped. We've already discussed these resistance lines. 69,280 is the first line of resistance. The final line of resistance is approximately at 77,500. So these red lines are the resistance lines from which there is a probability of a correction. Currently the rate has stopped. What is our most significant problem right now? I've already explained to you that should there be an escalation of the conflict between Iran and the United States, we are going to face a significant correction because the rate has already risen quite a bit. That's a good thing. This means that if it starts to fall, it will be falling from $70,000. We discussed that today, Thursday, they will be holding negotiations in Geneva. Then, after these talks, you need to be very careful, especially this weekend and early next week, because if they can't reach an agreement, there is a possibility of a correction. And where is our next support zone located? It's at $45,500 and $40,000. Where does our support zone finally end? Right here at $55,000, right here. $56,000 as we discussed. Let me show you some other economic events which are also quite significant. So yesterday Nvidia's earnings report was released. The market reacted quite positively to this news. On March 4th, an American company will also be releasing its data, which is another very important event. Now look, in early March, we'll also have quarterly, not quarterly figures, but unemployment and inflation data from the US being released. These are also important events. We can discuss them in detail in future videos. And then the Fed meeting on the 18th. The support zones, let's repeat this again, 70,000 and 55, then 45 and 40,000, and 30 and 20,000. Do we need 30 and 20,000? They could come in handy if there's a sudden escalation of the conflict, and this conflict escalation lingers for some time. So if we assume a correction is happening, meaning an escalation occurred, a correction took place, then the price moves into a sideways trend. As you can see, here the sideways movement is currently from $45,000 to $40,000. But if this escalation were to drag on for several months, it's quite possible that we could actually see 20 to 30,000. I'm not saying that we will necessarily see that happen. What I want you to understand is that if this escalation does occur, there is a real chance of that. The entire question then becomes, where will Bitcoin ultimately stop? At this very moment, no one truly knows that. And only one person knows if this escalation will happen or not. These here, they are what we call the resistance lines. And then over there, where he pointed out the green colored lines, those are the support lines. Be careful this weekend and early next week, please. The fact that the rate is growing, that's great. If there wasn't this problem between Iran and the US, we could assume that we'd soon break through this blue line, meaning the downward trend line, and the new trend would form. That would be very good. I, just like you, am waiting for growth. But there is still a possibility for correction. Please keep that in mind. Look at how the situation with Solana looks. We discussed that these red lines for Solana are resistance lines. You see, the price stopped precisely on these very lines. 88 and $104, these are resistance lines. You'd also see this blue line. This is our mean downtrend, so the price hasn't broken this blue line yet. And where do the support levels go? Let's quickly go over them once more. These numbers that you're seeing here, these represent Bitcoin zones. So if the Bitcoin price drops to $55,000, then Solana will be at $56. After that, we have $47, $40, and $34. If the Bitcoin price drops to 40,000, so these zones will be needed by you in case of conflict escalation. If it occurs, then you should orient yourselves by these zones. For now, the course has stabilized. So Bitcoin rose because of Nvidia and Solana rose because of Bitcoin. It's all very simple. That's why we are still in a consolidation phase. As I mentioned in my previous videos, for us to see growth, we need to break through this blue line where the price is currently situated. The price is below this blue line, so the trend hasn't changed yet. And when the trend does change, that will signify growth. This growth could potentially continue for 1, 2, 3, or even 4 months. But for now, we are still experiencing a decline. I showed you what should happen with the rate, what can happen with the rate when it breaks the blue line. You see, it breaks the blue line and then its trend changes. So please be careful this weekend and early next week. What's going on with the Shiba Inu price? Shiba Inu, just like Bitcoin and Solana, also saw a rise due to Nvidia's data. Here you can see the price reached these red lines and then it stopped right there. That means these are resistance lines. 6, 3, 9, and then 7, 0, 3. And then it stopped and started to go down. What did we discuss? That if there is a sudden escalation between these two countries, namely Iran and the US, we'll most likely see a market correction. The whole question is how significantly Bitcoin's price will drop, if that indeed happens, of course, and for how long it will continue to fall, meaning how long the price consolidation for Bitcoin will actually last. These specific zones here are designated support zones prepared for the eventuality that Bitcoin's price might fall, meaning Shiba Inu will stop approximately at this point if the price of Bitcoin falls to $55,000. That's 437. Then it goes to $50,000 for Bitcoin. That's 370. Then it goes to 313 and 257. This is a guideline for you so you roughly understand where Shiba Inu will stop. So the only problem we have now is whether there will be an escalation between Iran and the US or not. So regarding Shiba Inu itself, it's currently at a historical support level. This means it's a strong zone, you could say, from which it has always moved upwards. But the problem is that we have an unresolved issue between Iran and the United States. If there is an escalation, Shiba Inu will certainly break its historical support and go down. Please understand me correctly. I, just like you, truly wish the price would rise. But should it fall because of this specific event, if this event actually happens, then naturally everything will decline. And then we'll face the next big problem. How long will this market correction last? In other words, how long will we experience this sideways movement?